The vast emptiness of space held many secrets, but none quite as striking as the sight of 300 massive ships floating helplessly at the edge of the purple nebula. Each ship, gleaming with a silver-blue metal unknown to human science, stretched nearly 2 miles in length. Their usual soft blue glow had dimmed to almost nothing, leaving them looking like ghost ships in the darkness of space. Fleet Commander Roberts stood at the main window of the command ship, his four-fingered hands clasped behind his back. His gray skin looked almost purple in the light of the nebula, and his large eyes reflected the worried faces of his crew behind him. They had been stranded here for what humans would call 3 weeks, their highly advanced quantum engines rendered useless by strange energy waves coming from the nebula. "Commander," called out First Officer Wilson from his station, "the power reserves are down to 30%. His voice carried the weight of what they all knew. Without power, the life support systems would fail, and their entire civilization would face a disaster. Roberts turned slowly, looking at the 100 crew members on the bridge. They had tried everything their advanced technology could offer. The quantum computers couldn't solve the problem. Their AI systems were confused by the nebula's strange properties. Even their backup systems, which were supposed to be foolproof, had failed to adapt to the unusual energy patterns. "Show me the latest scan of nearby systems," Roberts ordered, his voice steady despite his growing fear. The three-dimensional map appeared in the center of the bridge, showing stars and planets within reach of their long-range scanners. That's when they noticed it. A small blue planet, third from its yellow star. What caught their attention wasn't the planet itself, but the thousands of radio signals bouncing around it. They were primitive by the fleet's standards, simple radio waves, television broadcasts, and basic satellite communications. But they showed something important: intelligent life. "Can we get any clear information from these signals?" Roberts asked, walking closer to the holographic display. The communication officers worked quickly, their six-fingered hands moving across their control panels. "Yes, Commander," one of them answered. "The signals are coming from a species that calls themselves humans. They're relatively young in terms of space travel, but..." He paused, checking his readings again. "They seem to have a remarkable understanding of mechanical engineering." Roberts watched as images from Earth appeared on the main screen. He saw their simple rockets, their space stations held together by basic but effective technology, and their sturdy satellites that kept working year after year without any quantum systems or AI support. "Their technology is primitive," Second Officer Davis said, her antenna twitching with concern. "They haven't even developed basic quantum communication yet." "No," Roberts agreed, "but look at how they solve problems." He pointed to an image of human astronauts repairing a space telescope. "They rely on mechanical systems, backup plans, and manual controls. Everything we've moved past. Everything that might still work in this nebula." The bridge fell silent as understanding spread through the crew. Their advanced technology, which had served them so well for centuries, was now their greatest weakness. These humans, with their primitive technology, might be their only hope. Roberts straightened his uniform and made the hardest decision of his career. "Prepare a distress message," he ordered. "Use their basic radio frequencies. Tell them." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Tell them we need their help." As the communication officers began their work, Roberts turned back to the window. Out there, somewhere beyond the purple clouds of the nebula, was a young species that might save them all. A species that hadn't forgotten the simple solutions in their rush to develop advanced ones. The message was sent, traveling through space at the speed of radio waves. It would take days to reach Earth, and Roberts could only hope the humans would understand it, and more importantly, that they would choose to help. In the darkness of space, 300 ships waited, their crews watching the strange purple nebula that had trapped them. Their future now depended on a species they had never met, whose technology they had considered outdated. It was a humbling moment for one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Deep in the New Mexico desert, surrounded by radio telescopes pointing at the stars, Dr. Tom Baker was about to finish his night shift at the Space Listening Station. He reached for his coffee mug, only to find it empty. The clock showed 5:47 a.m., and nothing interesting had happened all night, until his computer started beeping. At first, he thought it was a mistake. The signal was too clear, too structured to be natural. But it wasn't coming from any known satellite or space station. His hand shook as he pressed the emergency button, sending alerts to his superiors. Within an hour, the quiet station transformed into a hub of activity. Scientists rushed in, their eyes wide with excitement as they gathered around Tom's computer screens. The station chief, Dr. Anna White, took charge immediately. "Play it again," she ordered, her eyes fixed on the main screen. The signal filled the room once more, a series of steady pulses, mathematical in nature, but unlike anything they had heard before. "It's repeating the same pattern every 12 minutes, Tom explained, pointing to the wave patterns. "And look at this part. It's showing basic math first, then what looks like a star map. And then—" He paused, taking a deep breath. "What we think is a message." The news spread quickly. Within hours, similar listening stations around the world confirmed they were receiving the same signal. In Washington, London, Moscow, and Beijing, government officials gathered in emergency meetings. The message was being broadcast on simple radio frequencies, frequencies humans had used in their early space programs. At the International Space Center, dozens of scientists worked around the clock to decode the message. Dr. White led the team, her experience with signal processing proving invaluable. After 2 days of nonstop work, they had their first breakthrough. "It's definitely a distress call," she announced to the room full of tired but excited scientists. "They're showing us their location using pulsars as reference points. And these patterns here," she pointed to a complex series of signals, "they're telling us about their ships. They're stuck, and their advanced systems aren't working." The room buzzed with questions. How advanced were these aliens? Why were they using such basic communication methods? And most importantly, should Earth help them? The United Nations called an emergency session. Representatives from every nation gathered to debate the response. Some worried it might be a trap. Others saw it as humanity's chance to prove itself to the stars. "We've confirmed they're real," Dr. White testified before the UN Assembly. "Our telescopes can see their fleet now, 300 massive ships stranded at the edge of the Purple Nebula. They need our help." "But why us?" asked one of the representatives. "If they're so advanced, why come to us?" Tom, who had been invited to speak, stepped forward. "Because sometimes the simplest solution is the best one," he explained. "Their message shows they have incredible technology, quantum engines, AI systems, things we can barely understand. But all that advanced technology isn't working in the nebula. They need something more basic, more reliable. They need human engineering." The debate lasted 3 days. In the end, the vote was nearly unanimous. Earth would help. The response message was simple, broadcast on the same frequencies the aliens had used. "We hear you. We're coming to help. Hold on." As the message traveled through space, preparations began on Earth. The best engineers, mechanics, and problem solvers were called in. Space agencies around the world worked together, preparing ships and equipment. They didn't have the aliens' advanced technology, but they had something that might be more valuable: centuries of experience with mechanical systems, backup plans, and manual controls. In the New Mexico desert, Tom stood outside the listening station, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, an advanced alien civilization waited for help from humans, a species they probably considered primitive. He smiled, thinking about how sometimes the oldest solutions were the best ones. The greatest adventure in human history was about to begin, and it started with a simple radio signal in the early hours of a quiet morning in New Mexico. The meeting room at NASA's main building was packed with the brightest minds Earth had to offer. Engineers from different space agencies sat shoulder to shoulder, their tables covered with drawings, calculations, and coffee cups. At the front of the room, Captain James Miller stood before a large screen showing the alien fleet's specifications they had received. "Their quantum engines are amazing," he said, pointing to the complex diagrams. "But that's exactly the problem. They're too advanced, too dependent on perfect conditions. The nebula's energy field has thrown everything off balance." He paused, looking around the room. "We need to think simpler." Chief Engineer Thompson raised his hand. He was older than most people in the room, with gray hair and hands that showed years of working with machines. "Those ships are huge," he said, studying the diagrams. "But if you look closely, they're built a lot like our old sea vessels. They still need to move through space, and the basic rules of physics haven't changed." The room grew quiet as Thompson walked to the front. He picked up a marker and started drawing on the whiteboard. Simple mechanical systems, backup power units, and manual controls. Things that human ships had used for decades. "Look," he said, "their fancy quantum engines aren't working, but the ships themselves are still solid. We can install backup chemical rockets, old school, but reliable. Add some mechanical steering systems, manual override controls." His marker squeaked across the board as he drew. "It won't be pretty, but it'll work." Miller nodded, a smile forming on his face. "It's like putting training wheels on a sports car," he said. "Their ships are better than ours in every way, except when things go wrong. That's where we come in." The next 2 weeks were a blur of activity. Space agencies around the world sent their best equipment and people. Engineers worked day and night, modifying Earth's largest space vessel, the Star Voyager, for the rescue mission. They installed extra fuel tanks, mechanical backup systems, and tools that hadn't been used in space for years. Thompson spent hours in the ship's engine room, teaching the crew how to work with both old and new technology. "Sometimes the best solution is the one that's been around the longest," he told them, showing how to manually restart a backup generator. The crew was carefully chosen, 20 of Earth's best engineers, mechanics, and problem solvers. They weren't just skilled with tools. They understood the importance of backup plans and manual controls. Each one had experience fixing things in space, where you couldn't just call for help. 3 days before launch, Miller gathered his crew in the ship's main room. "The aliens think their technology is perfect," he said, looking at each crew member. "They forgot that sometimes things go wrong, and when they do, you need to be able to fix them yourself. That's what humans are good at. We never stopped learning the basics." The launch day arrived bright and clear. Thousands gathered to watch, and millions more followed on screens around the world. The Star Voyager looked strange with its extra fuel tanks and modified systems, but every addition had a purpose. As the countdown began, Thompson checked the engine room one last time. Next to the ship's modern computers, he had installed old-style control panels with manual switches and gauges. "Sometimes you need to be able to kick it to make it work," he joked, patting the panel. The launch was perfect. As the Star Voyager rose into the sky on a column of flame, humans around the world held their breath. They weren't sending their most advanced ship. They were sending their most reliable one, crewed by people who understood that sometimes the old ways were the best ways. In the control room, Miller looked at the course plotted to the stranded alien fleet. It would take them 2 weeks to reach them, traveling through space the way humans had learned to do it, carefully, with backup plans for their backup plans. "Let's show them what human engineering can do," he said as Earth disappeared behind them. His crew nodded, ready to prove that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in having the most advanced technology, but in remembering how to fix things when that technology failed. The Star Voyager pushed through the darkness of space, its modified engines humming steadily. 10 days had passed since they left Earth, and Captain Miller watched through the main window as the purple nebula grew larger in the distance. Its swirling clouds of gas glowed with an eerie light that made everyone on board feel uneasy. "Energy readings are getting strange," reported Officer Jones from her station. The ship's instruments were starting to show the same interference that had trapped the alien fleet. But unlike their advanced ships, the Star Voyager was ready for trouble. Thompson's voice crackled over the intercom from the engine room. "Main computers acting up, Captain. Switching to backup systems now." There was a brief flicker of lights, and then the old-style control panels lit up across the bridge. The crew smoothly transitioned to manual controls, just as they had practiced. "Just like driving an old truck," Miller said with a smile, his hands on the manual steering controls. The Star Voyager might not have been as elegant as the alien ships, but it kept moving forward, steady and strong. The next few days tested everything they had prepared for. The nebula's energy played havoc with their electronics, but the mechanical systems kept working. When the main navigation computer failed, they used simple star charts and basic instruments. When the automatic life support system glitched, they switched to the manual backup system that Thompson had insisted on installing. "Look at that," said Williams, the youngest crew member, pointing at their sensor readings. "The nebula's energy patterns are like waves in an ocean. That's why the alien quantum engines can't handle it. They're too precise, too perfect. Our old-style rockets just push through it." They were right. The Star Voyager's chemical rockets, considered outdated by modern standards, were actually perfect for these conditions. They weren't trying to be clever with quantum mechanics or AI calculations. They just burned fuel and created thrust, the same way rockets had worked for hundreds of years. On the 13th day, they hit their biggest challenge. A particularly strong energy wave from the nebula knocked out all their electronic systems at once. The bridge went dark, and for a moment, everyone held their breath. "Don't worry," Thompson's voice came through a hand-cranked emergency radio. "We've got this." In the engine room, he and his team worked with flashlights, using wrenches and manual tools to keep the engines running. They had practiced this scenario dozens of times back on Earth, but now it was real. Miller moved through the dark bridge, touching each crew member's shoulder. "This is why they needed us," he said calmly. "When everything goes wrong, humans know how to keep going. We never forgot how to do things the hard way." For 6 hours, they flew through space using nothing but mechanical instruments and manual controls. The crew worked together like a well-oiled machine, passing messages through speaking tubes when the radios wouldn't work, checking systems with their own eyes when sensors failed. Finally, as they pushed through the worst of the energy storm, their systems slowly came back online. The crew cheered, but there wasn't much time to celebrate. Their sensors had picked up something huge ahead of them. "There they are," Miller announced, his voice filled with awe. Through the front window, they could see the alien fleet. 300 massive ships, their sleek forms dark against the purple backdrop of the nebula. These ships, with all their advanced technology, had been helpless for weeks. The Star Voyager approached slowly, using its simple thrusters for precise control. Next to the alien ships, Earth's vessel looked like an old pickup truck parked beside a row of luxury cars. But it was moving, while they were stuck. "Send the greeting message," Miller ordered. They had prepared it back on Earth, a simple radio transmission that the aliens would be able to receive even with their systems compromised. "This is the Earth ship Star Voyager," the message began. "We've come to help. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways." As they drew closer to the massive alien command ship, Miller looked at his crew with pride. They had crossed the void between stars in a ship that many would consider primitive, but they had made it. They were about to prove that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in having the newest technology, but in remembering how to work without it. The docking procedure between the Star Voyager and the alien command ship took 3 hours. Without working computers, both ships had to line up using only visual signals and radio communication. Captain Miller stood at the airlock with Thompson and 2 other crew members, waiting for the pressure to equalize. "Remember," Miller said to his team, "they might look different, but they need our help. Stay calm and focused." The airlock lights turned green, and with a hiss of air, the door slowly opened. Fleet Commander Roberts stood on the other side with his own team. The humans got their first real look at their alien counterparts, tall, gray-skinned beings with large eyes and four-fingered hands. For a moment, both groups just stared at each other, taking in their differences. Robert spoke first, his words translated by a simple mechanical device hanging from his neck. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice carrying a hint of both relief and embarrassment. We didn't expect to need help from." He paused, searching for the right words. "From a less advanced species." Miller finished with a friendly smile. "Sometimes the most advanced solution isn't the best one. May we see your engine room?" As they walked through the alien ship, the humans were amazed by its technology. Holographic displays floated in the air, doors opened with a thought, and robots moved through the corridors doing repairs. But nothing was working properly. The holograms flickered, the doors had to be pushed open manually, and the robots kept bumping into walls. "Everything depends on quantum computing and AI systems," Roberts explained as they entered the massive engine room. "When the nebula's energy disrupted them, we had no backups. We never thought we'd need them." Thompson walked around the quantum engine core, his experienced eyes taking everything in. "It's brilliant," he said, "but too perfect. See, we humans learned the hard way that space is messy. Things go wrong. That's why we still use buttons and levers alongside our computers." Over the next few hours, the humans shared their plans with the alien engineers. They would install mechanical backup systems, chemical thrusters, and manual controls. The aliens listened with growing interest, especially when Thompson showed them how to bypass their quantum systems using simple mechanical principles. "You mean you can start an engine by turning a key?" one alien engineer asked, fascinated by the concept. Thompson laughed and showed him an old ignition system they'd brought along. The cultural exchange went both ways. While the humans taught the aliens about mechanical backups and manual controls, the aliens shared stories about their travels through space. They had visited 1,000 worlds, but had never met a species quite like humans. "Your technology is simple," one alien scientist said during a break, "but your thinking, it's different. You don't just look for the best solution. You look for the one that can't go wrong." Miller nodded. "On Earth, we have a saying, keep it simple, stupid. When lives are at stake, complicated isn't always better." The aliens were particularly impressed by the humans' ability to improvise. When they needed a tool they didn't have, Thompson and his team would make one from spare parts. When a problem didn't have a perfect solution, they'd find a way to work around it. "We've spent centuries trying to eliminate uncertainty from our technology," Roberts admitted, watching Thompson teach his engineers how to use a wrench. "Perhaps we went too far. We forgot that sometimes you need to be able to fix things yourself." By the end of that first day, both species had learned valuable lessons. The humans saw that advanced technology didn't have to mean abandoning the basics, while the aliens realized that progress wasn't just about making things more complex. As Miller prepared to return to the Star Voyager for the night, Roberts stopped him. "When we sent that distress signal," the alien commander said, "some of my crew thought it was beneath our dignity to ask help from primitives." Miller smiled. "Maybe being primitive isn't so bad. After all, we're the ones still moving." The joke took a moment to translate, but when it did, both commanders laughed. In that moment, despite all their differences, they weren't alien and human. They were just two space travelers who understood that out here, among the stars, pride meant nothing. What mattered was getting the job done, no matter how simple the solution might be. The next week passed in a blur of activity. The Star Voyager's crew spread out across the alien fleet, teaching and working around the clock. Each massive ship needed its own set of backup systems, and time was running short. The fleet's power reserves were down to 15%. Thompson stood in the engine room of the third ship they were modifying, wiping sweat from his forehead. Around him, human and alien engineers worked together, installing mechanical controls alongside the silent quantum systems. The sound of wrenches turning and metal clanking filled the air. sounds these ships had never heard before. Like this, Thompson showed an alien engineer named Reed how to install a manual fuel pump. If the main system fails, you just pump it by hand. Not fancy, but it works. Reed's large eyes blinked in understanding as he tried the pump himself. On the command ship, Miller and Roberts watched the progress through old-style paper charts spread across a table. They couldn't trust the holographic displays, so they were doing it the old way, marking each completed ship with a simple pencil mark. 50 ships done, Miller said, marking another box. But we need to work faster. He looked at the power readings. The life support systems were starting to fail on the outer ships, forcing their crews to move to the central vessels. Roberts nodded, his gray face showing worry. My people are learning quickly, but some of these concepts, they're so foreign to us. The idea of doing things by hand, without computers. That's why we brought these, Miller said, pulling out a stack of printed manuals. Step-by-step instructions, no computers needed. Old school, but reliable. The operation faced its first major crisis 3 days later. One of the outer ships lost power completely, its crew trapped inside. The alien rescue teams were helpless. Their equipment needed working computers to function. We'll handle this, Miller said, gathering his team. They put on their spacesuits, simple, mechanical designs that had barely changed in 50 years. While the aliens watched in amazement, the humans used basic tools to manually open the outer airlock. Just like breaking into a car, Thompson joked as he turned the emergency release valve. The team moved through the dark ship using battery-powered lights, finding the stranded crew and helping them to safety. No computers, no quantum technology, just human ingenuity and mechanical tools. That rescue changed everything. The aliens stopped questioning the human methods and started embracing them. Soon, alien crews were practicing emergency procedures using mechanical tools, learning to trust their hands as much as their computers. Watch this, Reed said proudly to Thompson, demonstrating how he'd modified an alien power tool to work without its computer. Simple circuits, like you showed us. It's not as precise. But it works, Thompson finished, smiling. Sometimes that's all you need. By the 10th day, they had modified 200 ships. The work got faster as the aliens learned, with each crew teaching the next. They installed backup chemical rockets, manual control systems, and mechanical pumps. Every ship got a set of basic tools and printed manuals. The biggest challenge came when it was time to test the first modified ship. Everyone watched nervously as its new chemical rockets fired up, pushing against the nebula's strange energy. The quantum engines were still dead, but the simple rockets pushed steadily, moving the massive ship forward. It's working, Roberts announced over the radio, his usually formal voice full of excitement. Cheers erupted across the fleet. Human and alien voices mixed together in celebration. One by one, they tested each modified ship. Some needed adjustments, others worked perfectly the first time. The aliens were amazed at how their massive, advanced vessels could move using such basic technology. We're ready for the final phase, Miller told Roberts as they looked at the nearly completed chart. Tomorrow, we start moving the fleet out of the nebula. Not fast, not pretty, but steady and sure. Roberts looked at the human captain with new respect. You've taught us more than just how to fix our ships, he said. You've shown us that sometimes the best solution is the simplest one. As the crews made final preparations for the exodus, human and alien engineers worked side by side, checking connections and testing systems. They had done what seemed impossible, combining the most advanced technology in the galaxy with the simplest human innovations, creating something that was better than either alone. The exodus from the Purple Nebula took 3 days. 300 massive ships moved in formation, their emergency chemical rockets glowing like stars against the purple clouds. The Star Voyager led the way, using its simple sensors to guide the fleet through the safest path. From his position on the command ship's bridge, Miller watched the progress with pride. Each ship moved slowly but surely, their new mechanical systems working perfectly even as the nebula's energy continued to disrupt their quantum technology. "Look at that," Thompson said, standing beside him. Not one ship left behind. They had installed backup systems on every vessel, trained every crew, and now the entire fleet was moving together, safe by what the aliens had once considered primitive technology. As they reached the edge of the nebula, something unexpected happened. The alien ship's quantum engines started humming back to life, their advanced systems reactivating in the clear space. But instead of immediately switching back to their advanced technology, the alien crews kept the human modifications running alongside them. "We've learned our lesson," Roberts explained, watching his fleet's systems return to normal. "From now on, every ship in our fleet will have mechanical backups. Every crew member will know how to use manual controls. We'll never be helpless again." The news of the successful rescue spread quickly across the galaxy. Other advanced civilizations, who had long looked down on Earth's primitive technology, started to see humans in a new light. Within months, ships from different alien species began visiting Earth, not to share their advanced technology, but to learn about humanity's practical approaches to space travel. Back on Earth, Thompson found himself teaching alien engineers about basic mechanical principles. "See the beauty of a lever," he explained to a group of visitors from various worlds, "is that it always works. No power needed, no computers to fail. Just simple physics." The Star Voyager's crew became celebrities, not just on Earth, but across known space. They were invited to help design new ships that combined the best of both worlds. Advanced alien technology backed up by reliable human engineering. These hybrid vessels proved more successful than anyone expected. "The galaxy's changing," Miller told his crew during a reunion 6 months later. "And we helped change it." Around them, the spaceport buzzed with activity as human and alien ships sat side by side, each learning from the other. The most significant change came in how the galaxy's civilizations viewed progress. For centuries, they had believed that advancement meant making things more complex, more automated. Now they understood that true progress meant finding the right balance between innovation and reliability. Roberts, who had become Earth's strongest ally in the galaxy, summed it up best during a speech to the Galactic Council. "We thought we had outgrown the simple solutions," he said, standing proudly beside Miller. "We were wrong. The humans showed us that sometimes the old ways are the best ways. They reminded us that the most advanced civilization isn't the one with the most complex technology. It's the one that can adapt and survive when that technology fails." 1 year after the rescue, a new school opened on Earth, the Interstellar Engineering Academy. Here, humans taught aliens about mechanical systems and manual controls, while aliens shared their advanced knowledge. Together, they created a new approach to space technology, one that valued both innovation and reliability. Thompson, now the Academy's head teacher, kept a special display in his classroom. An old wrench next to a quantum scanner. Both are tools. He would tell his students, both human and alien, both have their place. The trick is knowing when to use each one. The Star Voyager remained in service, but it was no longer just Earth's ship. It became a symbol of cooperation between species, its hull marked with both human and alien symbols. Its simple but effective design influenced a new generation of spacecraft that carried the best of both worlds into the stars. As Miller stood on the Academy's observation deck, watching ships of all kinds coming and going, he smiled at how far they'd come. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, not by having the most advanced technology, but by remembering the value of simple solutions. They had taught the galaxy that true wisdom wasn't about forgetting the old ways, but about knowing when to use them. The legacy of the rescue would continue for generations, reminding everyone that sometimes the greatest advances come not from making things more complex, but from remembering how to keep them simple.